Hi guys, welcome back. But happy Friday. The week's almost over. All right. So let's get straight into our lesson. What have we been talking about within this chapter? Basically, we've been talking about the beginnings of our government, the beginnings of the presidency. And today we're going to kind of go over some of the precedents that George Washington set, some of the examples that he left for the future presidents to come. One of the things that we talked about was capital. That was one of the precedents that he set. But remember, there were two meanings and two spellings for that word. So let's go over them real quickly. Okay? So here we go. So the first one, capital with an A, means city. The city that the government is in that runs the country. Capital with an O is the building where the government people do have their meetings and where they make decisions and talk about things that they need to talk about. So capital with an A is the city, and capital with the O is the actual building that they do their business in. All right? So that was just a quick review of that. All right, so we're coming to the end of George Washington's presidency. And like I said, we're going to go over some of the precedences that he did and what it was like to be at the end, what a president does at the end of its presidency. So let's go over some things about precedence again. Remember, what was the definition of precedence? An example that was set, right? Can you think of any precedents that you have been shown in your family? Maybe some traditions, like how you celebrate Easter. We just got finished celebrating Easter. Well, how you celebrate Easter with your family is a precedent that your parents show you, an example of what they show you. Rules in your house. Those are examples or precedents that your parents set for you. How you converse with each other, how you talk with each other, or how you act, or how you eat dinner together. That's a precedent. How you talk with other adults is a precedent because your parents have shown you how to do that. How about cleaning your room? Who showed you how to clean your room? Your parents did, right. They showed you how to do it, so they're setting a precedent for you. Now, your parents showed you examples. You will show your children, and they will show their children, and you'll go right on down the line, all from the precedent that your parents showed you. Well, that's the exact same thing that happened with George Washington. He was the very first president. There were no presidents before him. So he was the first one to do a lot of things. And because he was the first one, he set a precedent, an example that all of the future presidents down the line would follow. And we're going to go over a couple of those right now. Okay, so and of course, he wanted to make sure he set a good example for the future presidents. He wanted to make sure he did justice. He showed his good morals and his good virtue to the rest of the presidents. So we'll go over some of the things that he did. Some of the precedents that he set, well, one of them was respect. Okay, what is respect? Respect is caring for other people and taking care of other people. How can you show respect to the presidency? Right, we can go to school and we can learn about him. Let's see, what's another way we can respect the presidency? Well, let's say this. What if you met him? If you were able to meet the president, would you say, "Hey, dude, what's happening?" No, you would never go up to the president and say that. You would call him by his title, Mr. President. You would shake his hand. You would be very respectful of him and his position. Well, George Washington was the one who said that. He wanted people to respect the presidency, because when you respect somebody, you show them reverence, like we had learned about in our Bible, and he also wanted to respect other people. Okay, not only did he want to take care of other people, but he wanted to show them that he was reliable, trustworthy, that you could count on him. One of the ways that he did that was he dressed very carefully. He made sure that his dress was appropriate. What you would think a president would wear. If you watch a lot of the presidents in past presidents in their videos, and even the president now, they're wearing dark suits. Okay, George Washington was the first one to wear a dark suit. He felt that was respectful to wear a dark suit. Another thing he did was behave carefully. He made sure that when he was in front of people, and even just in his regular life, he behaved carefully. He wanted to make sure that he had respect, that he showed you that he respected others so that they would respect him. So he watched what he said. He watched how he acted. He made sure he was acting properly. Another precedent that he set was responsible. Okay, he wanted to be responsible. He wanted to show again how he could take care of other people. One of the ways that he did that is he let the Congress command the army. Okay, he trusted the Congress and he let them command the army. Another thing he did to show his responsibleness was whatever choices the executive branch made, he took responsibility for them because he is in charge of the executive branch. Now, he had a lot of cabinet members and a lot of people that helped him make these decisions. But when these people made these decisions and the president agreed with them, if for some reason the decision wasn't the best that it ended up being, he said that it's my responsibility. I am the leader of them. I took their advice, so I'm responsible. So he took responsibility for all of what the executive branch did. Another thing, one of the biggest precedences that George Washington set was the terms that were served. How many terms a president could serve. So he decided that they could only serve 2 terms. All right. Now, a term for a president, remember we kind of talked about this way ago in I think chapter 2. How many years is one term for president? 4 years, right? It's 4 years. So there were 2 terms, and each term is 4 years. So how many total years could the president be president? We have 2 terms. They're 4 years each. Exactly 8 years total. That precedent was set by George Washington. Now, a lot of people back then thought that the president should be president for their life. But that sounds too much like a king. And remember, they just came from a king. They didn't want somebody to have that kind of power that the king had. So George Washington said, no, we can't be president for the rest of our life. You need to have a limit. So he did. He set term limits that you could serve for 2 terms, and each term was 4 years, so that you could serve a total of 8 years. And that precedent lasted until the 1900s. Pretty cool, huh? It's because he showed a lot of virtue and care for our country. All right. Now, as we said, the president is getting to the end of his presidency. Well, at the end of a presidency, the president makes a farewell address. So, what do you think a farewell address is? Well, what does farewell mean? Farewell means goodbye. What does address mean? Not the address of where you live. We're not saying goodbye to where you live. No, address is another name for a speech. So, George Washington was giving his goodbye speech, his farewell address. Okay? Goodbye speech. Now, when he was giving this goodbye speech, he wanted to let the people know why he wasn't going to be president anymore. Because remember, he's the first president. They've never had anybody not be president. So he's explaining to them why he's not going to be president anymore. And he is giving advice. He is giving suggestions to the rest of the country on how they can keep their country going and being successful. So he would talk with them in his speech about the advice he had and what he thought they could do to be a better country or to continue being a good country. Now, within this speech, he did have some concerns. One of the concerns he had was political parties. Now, up here we have for our vocab, political parties. We haven't talked about this one yet. Political parties are groups of people who try to gain power in the government. So they're groups of people who want to have power in the government. All right? George Washington was a little bit concerned about political parties, and he talked about this in his farewell address. Not only did he give his why he wasn't going to be president anymore, not only did he give his advice, but he also gave some concerns that he may have had about some things that could cause the country problems, in his opinion. One of them was political parties. Now, George Washington, in his mind, he thought, in his opinion, that political parties were not good for the country because he believed that a political party would only want to do things that were good for their group, not good for the whole country. So in George Washington's opinion, political parties were not good, and he urged the country not to have political parties. Now, nowadays we do have them, and you probably have heard of them. There's two big ones that we have now. One is the Democratic Party, and one is the Republican Party. All right. Another concern that George Washington had, and he talked about in his farewell address, was the national debt. Remember, debt is money that is owed. Now, George Washington knew sometimes you have to borrow money. They did for the Revolutionary War. But what he said was, when you borrow money, make sure you pay it back as quickly as you can. Don't be in debt to anybody any longer than you have to be. So he warned them, he encouraged them, he advised them to make sure that they pay off all of their debts as quickly as they could. A third concern he had for the country was the relationships with other countries. He had advised them and encouraged them to be careful about relationships that they have with other countries. Because think about that. Is another country going to put America first in their thoughts? No. They're going to put themselves first. They're going to do what's best for them before they do what's best for America. George Washington knew this. So he advised the future presidents and the country to be very careful about your relationships with other countries. Make sure that you are thinking about this relationship, and make sure it's a good relationship so that it's the best for America, not the best for another country. Right? So those were some of the concerns that he had for the country, and those were some of the things that he talked about for the country in his speech. All right, so one thing that he also said in his speech, this is a quote directly from his farewell address, was, and I'm going to read it to you so I make sure I get all the words right. He had said, successful nations would be based on good morals. That was a sentence right out of his speech. He said that a successful nation would succeed with good morals. What were those good morals? We talked about what morals were. Right, it's the things that you do following God and making good choices. And making those good choices would make a successful country. All right, now, George Washington left the nation with some great advice for many years to come. He knew he was an excellent first president. He had great precedences, and he had great ideas on how to continue the country being good. Working very well. Now, before we get to our big idea, he retired from the presidency when he was 66 years old. When he was 66 years old, he moved back. Let me turn this light off. He moved back to Mount Vernon. Okay, Mount Vernon is where he grew up. This is a beautiful house. Isn't it? See the water in the background? Oh, it's gorgeous. So he moved back there with his wife, and that's where he lived for the rest of his days. But he only had 2 years left before he passed away. He died on December 14th, 1799. And he was about 68 years old, 2 years after he retired. Now, George Washington is the only American person to have a state named after him. Do you guys remember what that state was? Yes, Washington State, exactly. Not only did he have a state named after him, he had memorials set up. And here is one right there in Washington, D.C. That is the Washington Memorial. So George Washington was an excellent president that the Americans wanted to remember and to honor because he did such a great job. So our big ideas, there are two of them. Here we have. They're kind of both pretty much related. Let me see if I can get this in there pretty good. Okay. All right. And you know what? Well, I'll just read them to you, but somehow they got a little washed off. So the first one is, Washington left a wonderful precedent for the following presidents, for the presidents that came after him. He did a great job with his presidents. And I can't even read what that was supposed to say. Oh. Well, he showed the way for the presidents that were following him. That should be, he showed the way for the presidents that were following him. He made, just again, really good examples. All right, there's two more words up here that I want to talk to you about because these two words are going to be on your worksheet, and they're kind of review words. The first one is fact. We know what a fact is. A fact is what we know is true. You can't question it. We have proof it's really happened. Opinion is what someone thinks. It's someone's thoughts. It's how they feel about something. It's what they like. It's what they don't like. Fact and opinion are opposite. So I'll give you an example. I think chocolate is the best sweet treat there is. Now you may agree with me, but is that a fact or is that an opinion? Yes, that's an opinion because some people may not like chocolate. Some people may think that gummy worms are the best sweet treat. Some people may think bubble gum is the best sweet treat. Some people may not like sweet treats at all. So that is an opinion. Now let's try this one. Chocolate comes from cacao trees. Is that a fact or an opinion? Yes, that is a fact. Chocolate doesn't come from walnut trees. Chocolate doesn't come from blueberry bushes. Chocolate doesn't come from an apple tree. It can only come from a cacao tree because that's where we get cocoa from. So that is a fact. We know that is true. And so that's the difference between our fact and opinion. All right? Okay, so since we've done that, I'm going to show you what your worksheet is today. It's only got 12 questions on here. Okay? We'll go over them. All right, so number one is, what is a political party? We talked about what a political party was. In fact, it's right there up on the board. Groups of people who try to gain power in the government. All right, so if you forget what it is, you can always go back into the video and watch it. Number two, what is a precedent? We've talked about that one a lot. A lot. You should know what a precedent is, okay? Next one, how many terms did Washington serve as president? Remember, that says terms, not how many years. How many terms did Washington serve? Then the next one is, how long is a term of a president? How long is one term for a president? What was Washington's last speech to the nation called? Something about goodbye. All right, and then we go into our fact and opinion. All right, number 6, George Washington was the best president. Is that a fact or an opinion? Think about that one. Number 7, Washington said that a successful nation needed to be based on good morals. Is that a fact or an opinion? Is that an opinion that he said that, or is it a fact that he said that? Right? 8, 9, and 10 are the same thing. Now, down here, it's kind of hard to see in the video, but if you pull this PDF up on your computer, you will be able to see it. This is a picture of George Washington's handwritten farewell address. He wrote his farewell address on a piece of paper, and they have a picture of it. Now, would this document be a primary or a secondary source? Think about that. Remember what a primary source and a secondary source are. Which one would his actual handwritten letter be? Is it a primary or secondary? And then I want you to tell me, why did you choose the answer you did? If you think it's a primary, why is it a primary? If you think it's a secondary source, why do you think it's a secondary source? All right? So you do not have to print this paper out. You can just look at it and write the answers on your paper and then take a picture and send it to your teacher. Or you can print it out and write right on here. It's up to you, whichever works best for you. All right, guys? Okay. I'm going to stand back here. Okay. So, again, if you have any questions, you can email your teacher. And I hope you have a great weekend since today's Friday. Enjoy that weekend. And I'll see you back here on Monday. All right, guys. Bye.